Print Your Games, the podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gamers. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by.
Kristen Soward's also known as Seventh Mastery.
And today we have someone that's very special on the podcast, Christopher from BlueWyvern. Hey, Christopher.
Hey guys.
Now, for anybody who's not familiar with BlueWyvern, could you give us the very brief sales pitch about what BlueWyvern is?
Okay. Well, first, hi guys. I'm Chris. I'm the creator from BlueWyvern, and I create 3D printable miniatures for tabletop RPG and wargames.
Huzzah! Yes. So BlueWyvern or Wyvern. Oh gosh, I'm never gonna.
I've
say
always
that
been
correctly.
Wyvern myself,
Yeah.
so I'm pro Wyvern.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So BlueWyvern, you have been on the scene for quite a while. I tend to remember you like from the wee old early days of just 2 years ago, but it seems like it's ancient times when 3D printing is concerned. And like first off, you stand out because like Twin Goddess, you decided that there is more colors than gray for renders, which was helpful. And especially since it like helps identify the name. But you've been in this space for a while. How long have you been doing the 3D printing stuff?
I'm going into my third year now. I officially started in 2021. I think it was around February of that year. But I'm now going into the third year of doing BlueWyvern.
Awesome. Now, were you big into gaming before you decided to get into the 3D printing world?
Oh, completely. You can probably see it in my background. I'm a total geek. I like to do whatever geeky stuff I can think of, gaming, collecting stuff. So I would say I'm really into gaming. Yeah.
Was there a specific game you started with, tabletop RPG or war game, or what was it?
On the basis of tabletop, it was probably D&D.
Okay.
I'm still fairly new with the tabletop gaming or and everything. I more focused on video games, but D&D, I always had an interest into D&D, and I think I actually started playing seriously around 1.5, 2 years ago,
Okay.
I would say. And that's why I said I'm fairly new in the tabletop scene, because I actually never really played tabletop games before starting BlueWyvern.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's I'm still fairly new in the market, fairly new in the community, or everything tabletop related. So I would say that I'm quote unquote experienced with the things I do, but the market concern, I'm still pretty new.
I think it's really cool though that the creative aspect drew you into the gaming hobby. Do you get to play a lot, or are you working too much?
I'm working too much. With the BlueWyvern work, it's almost pretty much 24/7.
Okay.
And every time I've a spot to do something, I always fixated on doing some work, either with concepting, with sculpting, rendering. I'm always working, and that's something I'm completely fine with. That's something I really expected it to do, because I have a goal. I have a dream that I want to accomplish, and to accomplish that dream, I accepted that I needed to work hard. So I'm mostly working. But if I have free time, I like to enjoy playing games or play D&D.
So, what games did you play? And what games did you play in the video game sphere? What's your favorites? Where are you spending your time?
Most of the time nowadays, PC games.
Mm-hmm.
Do like to play strategy games, shooters. I've been playing Jurassic World Evolutions 2 a lot. That's also, I like to enjoy Total War Warhammer 3,
Yes.
which I always play Lizardmen. Lizardmen.
I'm not
Yes.
surprised at all.
Lizardmen are my favorite faction. I just enjoy their beefy defensive type, aggressive type gameplay play style, and that's just what I like to do. I just like to gnaw on people, just throw in my beasts, and okay, good luck, and just destroy the opposition. Let's go. But it
I really
also,
enjoy nuking the entire world with
yeah,
Lord Croak.
yeah, pretty much, yeah, yeah. But besides that, I do occasionally play some console games. Currently, I'm playing Phoenix Ace Attorney with my girlfriend.
Cool.
Where we just completed the first game and we're now playing the second game. So I do like to play all sorts of types of games. Yeah.
So what I'm really curious is like, how did primarily a video game player decide to get into producing models for tabletop games before you even started playing tabletop?
Well, I always had an interest with 3D,
Hmm.
just not instantly with the tabletop aspect of it. But I always like to enjoy of like I actually enjoyed sculpting 3D models. That's something I really enjoyed doing. I come from a pretty creative background, from doing all sorts of things. But I always like to draw my own types of creatures, my types of characters. And once I figured out 3D was a thing, because
Hmm.
I didn't know 3D was a thing before doing all that stuff, I started testing out 3D sculpts. I started using ZBrush for that, sculpted my own things. And I think, oh, I started to develop a passion with that. I
Hmm.
really enjoyed sculpting the model, seeing it in a 3D space. And over the years, I just practiced for all types of projects, for different uses, for video game development, my own personal projects, uh, video editing. And eventually, I landed on, well, landed, I came across tabletop gaming,
Hmm.
and I really enjoyed what I was seeing. I really enjoyed the little miniatures, the little creatures I saw. And from that moment on, I like, hey, this is something that's worth my time. This is something I could find a passion in. And since then, I just really started sculpting my own miniatures, and the rest is history.
Did you teach yourself your sculpting skills, or did you have an academic background? Did you go to school for it, or just
I
self-taught?
Self-taught. I'm really the type of person that really likes to explore different things. And like I said, I really had an interest in 3D. And when I first started, I sucked with everything. I just couldn't sculpt a basic thing, basic shape. I really sucked at it. But over the years, I just practiced and practiced and practiced and tried new things with every new project. And eventually, I became better. Of course, became better, and that's just how it went. I just continued to practice, and eventually I landed on what I'm doing now.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell that quote unquote you sucked with looking at your newest models. Like you, very sharp edges, a lot of
Mhm.
great detail, very inventive posing. Actually, I think that like that is like the key that I notice most about like a really good 3D artist and somebody who is still like learning or has a lot more development to do is like maybe the models get the right detail, but all if the posings are like really stiff and unnatural, I'm just like, you still need a little bit more work there.
I've also noticed your sets kind of come out in kind of thematic bundles. I mean, and that's not uncommon, but they definitely feel like there's more of like a story behind them. Do you actually have like a world that's behind all this?
Yes, it's a world that's still in development.
Okay.
That's for sure. But I do have a world that I call Nomura,
Okay.
which is still a work in progress name. Everything about the world is still work in progress. But that's a world I developed for myself a few years back, even before I started Blue Wyvern.
Okay.
And it's a world that like to I like to be created through my community. I really like to take a step back and let my community create a world for my miniatures. So yes, I would say there is a world, but it's still work in progress.
Okay.
The other thing that's like I think really sets some of your work apart is, and I think this kind of ties into the fact that you don't come from a traditional tabletop background, that kind of would kind of overly influence what you produce, but your models definitely would not fall into what I would consider the typical creations. These
Mhm.
there's very few traditional humanoid species in your lineup. It's
Mhm.
dragon people and frog people and hogs with giant cannons. And so where do you draw your inspiration, and like why do you focus on like these animalistic uh characters?
Well, the why is because simply I like to do something different. I don't like to do what already has been done. Um, Maybe the themes have been done with some other people, but I like to create my own vision, what I think looks cool. And a lot of elements of design elements that I put into my sculpts come from video games and anime,
Mm-hmm.
mostly, because I'm a video gamer, so I like to reflect my interest within my sculpts. I really like to, for example, I really like Zelda
Mm-hmm.
for a lot. So I incorporate a lot of Zelda-ish elements into my sculpts, either as a like with my well, on one set of mine, the Tuscan quarters, which is pretty much just a type of Ganon Moblin type design that I incorporated into my sculpts. So if you can see the Zelda elements to it, you can notice, oh, that guy that looks a bit like Ganon, maybe a Moblin. Oh, that weapon, I recognize it from somewhere. So my sculpts are more thematical with games, with video games, my interests, my personal interests. Um, with how my miniatures look different is because like I said before, I like to create my own unique things, my own vision. I don't want to create something that the 20th same looking goblin or the 100th same rat people ogre or whatever. I want to create something that maybe exists thematically somewhere already, but I also want to create something that looks different, something that looks unique, something that you haven't seen before, which can be hard sometimes because a lot of things have been done before, but I try my best to create something unique every time.
Well, and I think your stuff's unique, but it could be like we were talking about your Tasmanian Devil
Hmm.
inspired set that's just dropped today, right? Or yesterday.
Hmm.
Uh, and, I mistook it initially for like really burly rat men.
Hmm.
And, you could use them for that. And so if you were playing OPR or something, you could pop them in there, but your army would definitely look very distinct and
Hmm.
very swole
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they are big, buff critters and very unique looking.
Hmm. Yeah, I do like to create my sculpt with a bit of muscle, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think why is because I watched a lot of Pumping Iron when growing up,
Okay.
specifically the Arnold sections. And I think because of that, the muscle definition in my sculpts get a bit of an inspiration from that. It's a bit stuck. It's stuck in my head, so I use it with every sculpt pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, like you, a lot of people that have focused on like some of the animal characters, like for example, like Goon Master or Twin Goddess, like they really lean into like the cute and almost cartoony aspects of them, um, which is a style I do like. But your style is definitely like these are when you said video games, like it really clicked because like these look like they could come out of a JRPG or an action game, and like definitely some of your earlier work was like, ooh, is there some Monster Hunter vibes in here?
Yeah, you can definitely tell with some sculpts of mine, specifically the recent set, the Bone Reavers that I released today or yesterday. Specifically the Cubone Throwers, which is yeah that one. You can
Little Pokemon vibe.
yeah, you can really tell that I had some Pokemon influences and Monster Hunter influences with the weapons or the names or the overall look. Uh, just so like I said, I based on that, I just like to incorporate the things that I like, and most of the time that's either video games or anime. But the funny thing is, I didn't actually design this miniature. This
Oh,
miniature, the Cubone thrower, both the name and the overall design was done by my community.
ooh,
There's a thing that I like to do is I hold monthly painting contests, and the first place winner gets the chance to create a 2D design that I make a miniature out of.
ooh.
And the Cubone thrower, both in the name and design, was done by one of my community members that was the first place in that last time contest. So I don't want to take the complete credit with the design. My community is also a big part of that.
That's really cool that you
Yeah,
incorporate those ideas.
you do a lot with your community, which was one of the things that like really made you stand apart from a lot of creators.
Mm.
You're very interactive with your community. You definitely listen to a lot of their requests and their feedback, and also one of the things your Patreon offers is you encourage your community to kit bash with your models, and I know like across the spectrum, like artists following all sorts of opinions. Like I've been like in some communities that I won't name that were like, we don't want you to kit bash with our stuff never do that. Don't modify our models for any reason whatsoever. And as somebody who loves to digitally kit bash models together, it was like really inspiring to see that not only do you support it and encourage it, but you also let your fans share those you have a way for your fans to share those models.
Mhm.
Can you go into like that program and how it works?
Well, with the kit bashing part, I can understand why some creators don't really like it,
Mm-hmm.
because there's also a chance that some people might share those kit bash files around for free, which is something I think is a risk. But I don't really like to limit my community.
Mm-hmm.
I really like to give my community a sense of freedom. And while I don't really support sharing the kit bashes commercially,
Mm-hmm.
I do support sharing the kit bashes just for personal use.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's still partially my creation, of course. They may be kit bashed, but they used miniatures I created or parts that I created. But I don't really like to limit my community with those. If you want to kit bash a model of mine that maybe with the centaurs or the quote unquote rat people that I made, uh, or a lot of the gargoyles that I created, if you want to kit bash that, completely fine. I'm totally fine with that. Do you enjoy doing that? I'm totally fine. As long as my community and my users really enjoy my miniatures, I'm completely fine with anything. Completely fine with kit bashing, completely fine with showing my miniatures to other people. As long as my community is happy, then I'm happy.
Mm-hmm. Well, your Patreon also mentions that for you for like some of the top kit bashes of the month, you actually share them out as part of the Patreon.
Yes and no. I don't really directly share them with my subscribers. It's more of my community that shares them with itself.
Okay.
A lot of my community members create these kit bash files. I think with this picture right now is the one, the big gargoyle at the back, the right back side, is a kit bash file that one of my community members made, and it's like a combination between the last gargoyle files and the previous gargoyle files from December, and he just shared the files within the community, and that in a specific channel, and that specific channel is a subscriber only channel.
Mm-hmm.
But they're free to share it with every subscriber within the community.
So you do it through a moderated, like a Discord channel.
Yeah, I do everything I do with every content that I put out. I usually do it through my own Discord.
Mm-hmm. And how's the community responded to that? Have you like seen a whole lot of like has this really like built up your community and the engagement, or have you or has it obviously if you're still doing it, it hasn't led to doom and gloom in the end of the Patreon?
I gotta be honest. Yes and no.
Mm.
And I say that because I like to do a lot of trial and error. Most of the time, I have no idea how something will turn out. So
Hmm.
I really like to test things out in either my community, in the Discord, or something outside of the community. I just really like to try new things, and maybe something might be something great for a community, something might stick, or something might not. And the great thing about my community, at least probably other communities have the same thing, but I'm gonna say with my community, is that they give me instant feedback, and I think feedback is very important if you want to create a good and engaging community.
Well, I've noticed you do like a poll channel that has a
Hmm.
whole bunch of like opinion polls, and it gets really drilled down into like what people are thinking about
Hmm.
specific releases and everything. And
Hmm.
I don't know a lot of creators that solicit that like that'll just like open up and say, okay, bring it on, I want to know everything. And
Hmm.
that's very admirable that you can just kind of engage with that kind of energy.
Well, I figured very, very early that I wanted to, with BlueWyvern, I wanted to create a community where everything can be discussed. Either casual stuff, some work stuff. I really wanted to involve my community, mostly because I make these miniatures for my community and other people for them to use, and B, because I make them for my community and other people to use, I want to know if they really actually enjoy them. And feedback and community engagement is a really essential part of that. I really wanted to get to know the people that use my miniatures. Really wanted to get to know my community, what makes them tick, what they like, what they don't like, so I can really play off their own likes and dislikes. And
Right.
that's why I incorporate my community in my creative process a lot. Maybe sometimes less than I would like to. I'm still, like I said, doing a lot of trial and error to see if what works and what does not. But with every project, with every monthly release, I try to involve everyone as much as possible.
So it sounds like you really got a good community that is like supporting what you're doing and really engaging with it. Do you feel like do you often feel the pressure because you're doing something so different and so original to like, hey, why don't you make more Warhammer proxies, or why don't you make the latest D&D thing instead of your original thing?
Yes. The first year, and actually the first 2 years I started it, I had it a lot. I had a lot of pressures because there were a lot of creators out there that did the things that you just said, like standardized miniatures or Warhammer centered miniatures, and I was there like creating something completely different. And a lot of the times, people came to, hey, why don't you just create more standard type miniatures? Why not something people already have seen or something people know of? And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. And I can see why I could do that, but I really want to create something unique, something that hasn't been done before. Like I said earlier, I really wanted to create something that's completely new and something that you could say, oh, I see this miniature, and this is something BlueWyvern created.
Hmm.
This is something that doesn't come from Warhammer, doesn't come from D&D, or something that's completely unique, and you can instantly tell, oh, this is something from this guy, from BlueWyvern, it's from Chris, and I haven't seen this before. Oh, this is cool. This is something unique. Oh, I want to know more about it.
Yeah, I will say that like I never see any of your models and not instantly know it's one of yours. Like you have a very distinct style with your models where it's like a lot of flowing action. You've got a lot of like character and
Hmm.
expression in the models, not a ton of reuse of elements. Like a lot of your models are very bespoke.
Hmm.
Um, and you definitely has like you have like a vision of like where these models fit with each other and in the world that they happen to be inhabiting that isn't shackled by a lot of traditional expectations.
Hmm. Yeah.
So like you
Oh,
have kind of a cycle in each release too, where there's like a bestial version, like a monstery bigger version, and then like a humanoid adventurer type version that kind of moves through. And so you get kind of a good spectrum of each release, even if they're tightly themed. And the axolotls are awesome. I'm glad you're showing them off, Param.
Yes.
Sorry,
I was just like, why is the fish puppies? What do the fish puppies do? Yeah. So where do you want to see like your company grow, or what projects do you want to tackle and grow with?
Yeah, you said you had a master plan, and I don't know if it was a secret master plan or not, but I'm curious.
Well, I wouldn't really per se call it a master plan, more of like a dream that I want to accomplish. And my dream, my focus on why I started BlueWyvern was to create my own company. It was to create my own project, my own type of thing that I could really be proud of, and I could make a stable income off of. So like I can make money off of my own, doing my own thing. So that's my main goal. But besides that, I'm also looking to do different things, not just miniatures. Maybe something doing into comics, maybe something into video games or tabletop games. I really enjoy the idea of making my own card game based on around my miniatures.
Interesting.
Besides doing miniatures, I really like to broaden my perspective, broaden my options, and look at, hey, what can I do with the time that I have? What can I do with the skills that I have? And maybe create something great out of that. But first, my main goal is to first create a uh, bigger following, a bigger subscriber count with what I'm doing already, which is a bit time consuming. As I gotta say, I've been doing this for 2.5 years now, and I really haven't come close to my first ever goal of 100 subscribers. But I work hard every day, and I tried my best to reach that goal.
I'm surprised that like you don't have a bigger following than that, because like I said, your stuff is unique and impressive and high quality, and I can't say that about a lot. I can't say that about every group out there. And I really like some of the energy that you put into this. So I noticed one of the other things is that you've become one of the OPR compatible creators.
Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about that and why you decided to go in that direction?
Was mostly due to my community. I'm still fairly new with anything one page rule related, so I don't know 100% everything about them. But my community knows a lot about one page rules, and they really pushed me to start talking with them, to start see if I can maybe arrange something with them, and that's how I came across their compatibility program.
Mm-hmm.
Because something that I really noticed that was lacking was the usability of my miniatures, and that's why I also shifted my type of miniatures that I create every month now. But I'll speak more about that later. So I just came across some people from One Page Rules and said, "Hey, I see that you offer compatibility programs. I create 3D miniatures. Could we arrange something with that? Does my miniatures perhaps fit with what you're doing?" So went back and forth with them, and eventually I was accepted by them for their competitive program, and now I have a slight banner on my of a flag on my banner that says, "Hey, this is compatible with the OPR and this and that." So I really just enjoy seeing the compatibility visual on my banner, and I just really enjoy the more engagement and more ideas it brings with them, not only from OPR but also with my community. My community has been really hyped, let's say hyped about being compatible with OPR, because like they're continuously to say, "Hey, we got to make a list of the miniatures that you created, maybe we can use for the games, and like this and that, and what could we fit within these lists of armies or whatever." Um, and I'm really looking and really excited about doing that. I'm currently working with a guy on making my own list for OPR. And once it's done, and I've created my own account on 1PR, I'm going to see how people or how my community will perceive that.
So is your intention then to make like your whole like freestanding army that's just like the Blue Wyvern army, or are you right now, because you have a lot of things that could just be proxied into existing army lists, and so what do you think your vision? Do you think you're going to try to get like a one big army eventually, or?
Probably more smaller armies.
Okay.
They're probably more focused on the
Okay.
skirmisher game types of OPR. So not full-on armies. My miniature count is too low to create a full-on 30 count or 30 plus count army.
Sure.
So I'm focusing on more smaller types armies, skirmisher armies, and
I don't think I've seen a lot of skirmish army focus lists. That's actually a really cool idea.
well, that's also something my community came up with, because they came up to me, and the guy I'm working with to create those lists suggested to me, hey, maybe skirmisher is something better suited for your miniatures. Let's see how that goes. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's try it and see where it leads. And now we're creating a list for skirmish for the skirmish mode.
I'm surprised that more creators don't focus like on skirmish content, because it's like so much more accessible, like for players, like for skirmish games, like Frostgrave and gosh, there's a bunch of them. There's Space Station Zero, obviously Kill Team Warcry, because like saying, hey, you need to put together a team of 12 people is a lot less intimidating than, hey, you need a 2,000 point army that is about 130 minis that you have to paint. And if they're zombies, you're going to be painting the same green zombie.
Yeah, I'm a lot more interested in the idea of like Axolotl Gang versus Magical Girls from Twin Goddess or Herberto. Like, that would be more entertaining to me than this standard orc versus chaos, whatever. Although I do like my demons.
Yeah, and I do like the big army games, obviously, because like I've got several like giant armies, but it's really fun that what the skirmish scale allows. Where like for instance, like me, I'm prepping that skirmish game with up at with David up at
Wisconsin.
Yeah, in Wisconsin, and like. As quickly as I'm able to just print off a plate with 2 or 3 different forces on it, and the fact that like painting a whole skirmish group is like a single night or a weekend at best commitment is very, very nice, especially with some of the armies I've been putting together for skirmish lately, where it's like I've got 4 people. I've got 3 people in this group. It's probably an absolutely terrible idea, but
Scryers in Necromunda, and I had like 3 or 4 minis, I think, because they were all big like mech dudes.
Yeah. In Hero Clicks, I always did like to like throw like everybody else would like get like 5 to 8 people, and I'd be like, now I've got Kingdom Come Superman, and that's it. That's my army. Good luck.
Yeah, all those silver rings.
So Christopher, what tabletop games have you been getting into? It's like you've obviously said the last couple of years you've been doing some D&D. Have you been doing like D&D stats for your releases?
Recently, yes. I've since last month I've introduced 5e stat sheets for my releases. And that's mostly because of I wanted to push the playability of my miniatures. And after reflecting a lot on what I create, like I said earlier, my miniatures didn't really have a playability. They really didn't really have a use for the tabletop scene, wargaming scene that I actually made them for. So to push that, to boost that, I started offering 5e stat sheets. The same with the OPR army lists for the same reason. And a lot of recent new changes and additions to my releases are fully for the playability of my miniatures. Because
So, sorry, with your D&D 5e stuff, have you been more DMing or playing, and how has that, whatever the role was, affected your choices when you're designing?
I've mostly been playing.
Okay.
Personally, I'm not really a DM type of player.
Okay.
I'm more of like just throw me into the world and let's go to point A to point Z. I just want to smash in some goblins' heads. I just want to enjoy the world. I just want to play into the world. I don't really want to DM and create the scenario or the campaign around it. I just want to experience it. And it's the same thing with the 5 e-sheets. A community member of mine creates those, and I'm more on on the sidelines. I'm like, oh, this looks cool, and maybe we can include this, or maybe this could look better. And based on that we create those 5 stat sheets. And I'm more like, okay, guys, here they are. Use them and enjoy.
Any of your characters end up sculpted into your sets? Have you ever made one of your player characters into a mini?
Not for my. No. Well, I don't want to say it too quickly.
Everybody does it.
There's at least one.
I
I had to think about it. But there's one character that has been sculpted into a 3D printable miniature. It's one of my early Lizardman sets. I think it was in around even before I even started Blue Wyvern.
Okay.
It was in 2020, and I think I created it at around September, October, or something. The only thing I really remember that it was before I started doing Blue Wyvern.
So he's not up on your store. We can't go buy your.
It's on my store, not my mini factory store, but it's on my mini hoarder store.
Okay.
And it's also part of my free starter pack. Exactly that one. It's also part of my free starter pack for new subscribers. So if people really want to start with something but don't really want to tackle the main set immediately, they can just start with the starter pack and see how far they go. But this Lizardman specifically is also the one that I created back before I started Blue Wyvern. That's something I really enjoyed playing as well. And I thought, oh, maybe it would be a cool idea if I created my own character into a miniature, and there he is.
Yeah. So for our audio listeners, it is a rather tall lizard folk with a sword that looks like it could have been pulled from a spaceship, and very paladin-y armor, but with jaws that would kind of be like from the what are they called from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? The mousers. Yes. It's it definitely is. This is a lizard man that has lots of charisma,
or money, or both.
I mean,
that's some
money
gear.
will buy the charisma.
That is some gear on a lizard man.
Yeah. So do you what kind of characters do you end up playing? Like, don't want to get into full tell me about your characters, but like you made a lizard man. Like, there's definitely a lot of animal influence in all of your sculpts. Is that the kind of characters and role play and stories you like to engage in?
Not specifically the story engagements. It's more like I've always enjoyed creating creatures. That's something I've since I was a kid. I really enjoyed drawing creatures, all sorts of creatures, and that naturally gravitated towards me creating 3D models of them. So based on that, I would say creatures are more my thing than human characters per se.
All right. So, do you have one of the other things that I really appreciate about your group is that you kind of like have landed into that little sub $10 bespoke tier that I really appreciate. Like your Patreon right now is like at the $7 entry in, so it's a real easy and accessible price range to get into. I don't sweat those $5-7 crews. I like to collect them like Skittles. And like I do like that format where it's like, hey, this isn't the water hose of elves. This is going to be a select, but not a tiny amount. You actually you have a good number of models that are released each month. The Wolverines, there's got to be like close to 20 models in that set, which is great value for investment there. And is that like the space you're comfortable in? Is like you don't foresee yourself like trying to compete at the we release 200 models every single month tier?
No. Something I realized very early on is that I didn't really wanted to look at what other creators were creating
Mm-hmm.
based on the amount of miniatures that they put out. I really wanted to create something that I was comfortable with, something that I could do, not something that somebody else could do. Like in there, like you said, 200 miniatures per month. That's something I just can't do. I wanted to create a format or a lineup that was comfortable for me, something that was realistic for me to do. And with my current count, it's 9 miniatures per month. That's both with modular aspects to them, so you could create, let's say, 30 plus different versions with the miniatures that I create with every set, maybe even more if you started to mirror them in the slicer that you use, of course. But with how much it costs per month, I really wanted to press the idea that you didn't really have to pay a lot of money to get quality miniatures. As a user myself, I something that really bothered me was that some creators ask sometimes ask top dollar for a miniature set or a miniature that they put out, and I want to really didn't want to make money a barrier for to get my miniatures. So that's why the overall cost of my monthly fees isn't that high. It's between $6 and $8. So I really wanted to make my miniatures accessible and be really fun and engaging to look at.
Well, and with that modularity, if the end user is willing to put in a little work doing some kit bashing, you could still get a pretty sizable, like army sized thing out of the release for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if mirroring and things like you were saying.
Well, especially with your community doing a bunch of kit bashing and sharing like that, not having to do all the kit bashing myself, definitely it makes this an attractive prospect.
Yes, that's for sure. You mentioned that there's might be some other changes coming, you were saying?
Yes, because since last month we introduced the modular aspect of my miniatures, which in this case swappable hands, swappable weapons. But I also want to introduce, when my growth exceeds more, I also want to include swappable modular heads. I also want to introduce maybe more miniatures to my account. Maybe other aspects to them, maybe more modular options. I really want to, as long as I grow, I want to incorporate appropriate rewards to that. So the first modular hands are the first step with that, because I've noticed that a lot of people wanted to get a modular aspect with the miniatures, and that's something I was a bit intimidated by, because at first I think, oh, could I do that? Is it feasible for me to do with the time I have? Is it actually something that people want? But last month I just like, okay, let's just try it out. Let's see how it goes. It's like as a trial and error. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But I just went for it, and so far people are very positive about it, and I'm like, oh, they really seem to enjoy it. So let's continue doing that.
Not that I would ever encourage it, but it looks like they might work with some other companies' releases too.
Yeah, like I do enjoy the modular hands, especially. Like I do think like modularity can definitely go to a point where it's can become intimidating as a user. Like, not that that's a bad thing to have, like superior, like not superior, like amazing amounts of modularity, but like when it's but he definitely does like give me pause when like the chest piece, and then there's the right leg and the left leg, and they're all interchangeable, and then the arms, and then the hands on the arms, and when I'm sometimes like when I'm some of these like space soldiers, and I'm trying to line up the little gun that has like the wrists mounting points and
Yeah.
getting the arms in just the right place. Uh, like I understand how like a lot of people that is their jam. That is exactly what they're doing. But I do think like the modular ball socket hands is like the perfect amount of modularity for me because like oftentimes I'll see this really cool miniature, especially if I want to play it in an RPG, or I'm trying to field a unit in a war game, and it's like I love that model. I love it to death. It needs to have a sword and a shield, or I
Yeah.
really need a spear and an offhand. And
I need a
ooh,
power gauntlet on it. Can I do
yeah.
that?
That lets me equip it and do cool things with it. And like, of course, with digital kit bashing, that's always possible. But like, it's a lot easier when you have the ball socket hands, where I can go and I'm just gonna grab this sword. Like often, like Kristen said, like ooh, I love this mini, and this other creator has a modular lizard man hand that has a sword made of T-Rex teeth, and I can put that on this model, and I'm good to go. Because I don't want to like I can pull out the blender and do the plane cut at the wrist and like do this myself, but it's so much easier when you just put the ball in the socket.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but that Cubone boomerang sword blade,
I
whatever
think
it
it's so
is,
cool. I think it's so cool.
batleth, whatever I want to see the stats for that weapon, but I could definitely swipe that for some other minis too.
Yeah, I do dig it. So one of the other things, like you've been at this for 3 years now, so
Mhm.
you've seen the big explosion boom. You've seen it go from like there's 20 creators in the whole field to I can't even tell you how many there are now. I've way lost count, and there's no way I can keep track of all the hundreds of creators in the space right now.
Mhm.
What do you think about how this has grown over the time you've been engaged with it?
I think it's on one side great. I think that it's great to have so many different creators, different type of miniatures around in the market. But sometimes I do feel it gets a bit oversaturated. Mostly because a lot of creators that pop up nowadays do sometimes a decent amount of time create miniatures that have been already done before, the more the standard type miniatures, or the more like to say the 10th version of a goblin, for example. So I do think if it's like a really unique type of creator, and I'm like, oh, that's great. But if it's not something like, oh, uh, the number 11 Goblin creator has been releasing Goblin 20, then I'm like, more maybe it's a bit too much. Uh, Maybe it's too oversaturated. I really wanted to see some more unique type of things. So I'm like on the fence about it. I'm 50-50 with it. I'm like, oh, it looks great. That's that the market has grown a lot. But on the other side, I'm like, maybe it shouldn't really grow that quickly, because I really still want to make it feel special in a way, you know? So I'm 50-50 on it.
Has there been any of the advances in the tech that you really appreciated, or that has like changed how you do your models?
Yes, specifically with 3D printers.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started, 3D printers were also pretty advanced at the time. At the time, it's like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. For me, it seems like a really long time, but retrospective, it's really not that long. But I've noticed that the both the advancement in printability with printers has grown tremendously, and also the affordability as well. Because I've when I first started, I had a Eligo Mars printer, and now it seems to be outdated, because
Mm-hmm.
I think we at the Saturn, whatever, Elegumar Saturn 5 or whatever. I'm not really up to date with which pretty printer it now is, but because the advancements in 3D printers have grown so much, the amount of detail a printer can print, the amount of a printer can print, the build plate size, the amount of resin that you need, how many power that you need for the printer, the safety precautions. It has grown tremendously, and it's been so much easier to use than 2 years ago. And that's something I really appreciate. More people are getting into the hobby. More people are trying to start 3D printing their own stuff, and it gets more accessible for the community, accessible for the market. And that's something like, oh, it's really starting to become a easy hobby people can get into. And that's something I really enjoy seeing. That like, oh, this week's Kevin started with the printer A, and next week he has become a quote unquote expert on 3D printing, and that's something I really enjoy. That's just the usability of it, and the playability, usability of 3D printers has grown a lot, and I really enjoy seeing that.
Yeah. I do like that, especially with FDM printing. Lately, it doesn't seem to be you have to get an engineering degree to get them to work anymore. I like the plug and play FDM printers out there. That's been a frequent.
Unless you're
And,
me.
and we have sort of joked that it's not a new. We do a news episode every month, and it's not a new news episode unless Elegoo's announced like 3 printers
Right.
between the last one, which has been a pretty good pace because to answer your specific question, we're on our 3rd version of Saturn, and the 4th Mars just launched. So, and that doesn't even count like the pros and the pro versions and the offshoots that we've been doing. It's only been, like you said, like 3 years since the Mars launched, and the fact that there's been like 12 printers that Elegoo alone has put out in that time. And good grief, the Neptune line has like shotgunned out FDM printers at an amazing pace.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had some favorite communities that you wanted to shout out to.
I got a few. I'm in a lot of Discord communities specifically, because I've always been looking out for new communities to join to showcase what I do. Um, but to showcase some specific communities, I'm just going to showcase or shout out a few of my partners. I've got official partners with what I do, and specifically there's a community or creator called Blackrest, which is also a Dutch creator, and his community is pretty much the same as mine, but with different topics, different themes. And I think his community is really great. It's like mine. It's really engaging. He gets a lot of feedback, and I really enjoy seeing that. So that's at least one creator and community I really want to shout out to.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. And if people wanted to follow your work, where's the best way that they can get in touch with you and find all the amazing things you do?
To get in touch with me, Discord is probably the quickest way. Like you probably guessed, and everybody watching us guesses, I really like to engage with people, just talk with people, and show that I'm just like a normal guy you can talk with. So if you really want to get in touch with me, Discord will be the best place. But if you really want to see what I do, my mini factory, my tribes, or my Patreon would be the best way to go.
Awesome. And for those of you, look for BlueWyvern on Patreon, on Tribes, on my Mini Factory, and a lot of your older stuff on Mini Hoarder, which honestly, I don't see a lot of people. I guess that's just been like way under my radar. What about that platform attracted you to it, especially for your older models?
That's a bit hard because I just really was pushed into it. Because before Mini Hoarder, I was on Cults 3D, which is a different marketplace website. And that was something I really enjoyed at the time. But then I came across one of the devs for Mini Hoarder, and they came up to me and they're like, hey, I've seen your miniatures and they look pretty cool. Would you like to come to my platform and see how it goes if you want to sell your miniatures on my platform? And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Let's see how it goes. And I really enjoyed the talking with the guy, and just based on that, it made me go on to their platform, because I'm really like a vibes type of person. If I can meld well with the people behind something, then I probably will go in partnership with them or go to that platform. So just based on talking with them, I started going on Mini Hoarder, and I've been ever since on there.
Awesome. Well, if you want to follow what we're doing, you can find the rest of our episodes over on printyourgames.com. We are over on YouTube at youtube.com/param. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/printyourgames. We're on Twitter at twitter.com/printyourgames. Do make sure you go check out BlueWyvern. They do some amazing models, especially if you want to get into like really unique characters, very video gamey characters, very awesome animal characters. You need to go check out BlueWyvern, especially since it's kind of on the cheap side for what you're getting, and the quality of those sculpts are kind of ace, really awesome. Until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Kristen Sowers, also known as Seventh Mastery. Don't forget to use your screen protector.
Bye, everybody.